Hello, homeschool mamas. Though I would love to jump in and chat about the pandemic, how it's affecting us, the collective trauma that most people are experiencing as a result of it, I have a special treat for you. Next week, I am going to share with you an interview with a counselor who is based in trauma. He has spent most of his career dealing with really tough stuff. This episode shares some pretty challenging stories that he's dealt with, but he's dealt with a lot of other ones. And I personally know him because he was my therapist at one point and helped me work through some things. So legit, real counselor, therapist that's going to address the discussion of trauma. And he's got a lot more to say in his recently released guide, his 6-step guide to trauma. It's a very accessible guide that is easy to read, easy to digest. It requires us to show up and acknowledge how we're really feeling about all this stuff. Cheap therapy if you want to listen to the podcast episode, but I'm going to share with you a little bit next week about maybe joining together and doing 6 sessions and actually using his guide for the purpose of dealing with our collective sense of trauma around this pandemic thing, which is going to end. But first, I want to jump in and talk about boundaries and the irony of this, because I got to chat with him this week. It wasn't intentional, and I'm talking about boundaries with you, but he was the person that helped introduce in my world in 2004 a sense of boundaries. And people ask me all the time, like, how are you doing so many things, or how are you doing all this stuff? Someone just said yesterday or this morning that I have so many hats, that I'm putting on so many hats. But the truth is, no, not really. It's that I've taken off a lot of hats. And my expectations of how I'm supposed to live or what an education is anyway, it really has shifted so dramatically. And I have put away other people's expectations of me. Really, mostly I have. It's why I speak frankly, or why I speak candidly, because I don't really think all the time about, will someone like what I'm saying? I never intend to offend. I'm sure that occasionally I must, but it's not my intention. But at the same time, I'm going to speak vulnerably, authentically. I'm doing it. So Brené Brown was the first person to introduce me, or was the second person to introduce me to boundaries in my homeschool, but it was Norm Quantz that introduced boundaries in my world. And it has benefited me incredibly this last year. So that'll be next week. I want to share a little homeschool mom reading with you from my recently released book, Homeschool-Mama-Self-Care-Nurturing the Nurturer. This is what I'm doing here on Fridays, is sharing a little encouragement for you. We homeschool mamas have a unique challenge and privilege all at the same time. We signed up to be with our children. We might need a little quiet in our homes. We might need some time away from our kids. We might need a clean house in order to feel sane. That is a challenge. Boundaries are simply this: you respect yourself and expect others to respect you also. Why build boundaries? The boundaries you maintain around your energy, your needs, your goals will help you maintain your peace, quiet, cleanliness, and organization. When our needs and our goals are met, we have energy and mental space to expand or to extend nurture to those around us too. What kinds of boundaries do we instill? Boundaries are entirely subjective. What you value and what I value aren't the same. I know that because I'm married. Maybe you don't have a clean house. I've met that mom. She was horribly messy, but also far more content with her kids. Go figure. To each their own. We need to create at-home work boundaries. Some of us moms are trying to work from home while homeschooling. For my creative writing to expand, I like to write in quiet. Well, you know where I'm going with that one. This has been a challenge, to say the least. Over the years, my kids have learned most days, if I am tapping on my laptop or my study door is closed, I am unavailable. We need to create morning boundaries. I insist on 15 minutes of early morning quiet for my brain to wake up with a cup of coffee, with a daily reading, with a journal entry. You know the shtick. I have told you all about my morning routine. As I'm aging, I actually wake at a ridiculously early hour, so I don't have to work at it. Teenagers are not normally up at 5, except for one of mine. So how to accomplish morning boundaries with younger kids? That is the challenge. For some 3-year-olds, 15 minutes of quiet might be too long. I knew one 1-year-old that could sit and read with books for an hour. I wanted that child. Consider purchasing an alarm clock and set the alarm clock to 7. They're up at 6, you say. Well, the alarm clock is for them to stay in their rooms. Let them know when the alarm goes off. They can come out and greet you then. Make sure they're set up with a few toys, books, a snack, just for 15 minutes. So they have something to do, or as long as they will stay in there and be safe and not tear the room apart. And I know that idea totally would have worked with 2 of my kids, but especially with one, it absolutely wouldn't. Build on your time apart, which is definitely challenging right now if you're in an area where I am and restrictions are coming down a little bit more tightly. Consider setting a boundary on your toilet time. If the door is closed, no one can talk to you unless the house is on fire. Direct them to scream, "The house is on fire!" And the house better be on fire. Stretch toilet time to 10 minutes. See where I'm going? Then 11, then 12. Bring in a book and a cup of coffee. Yeah, make sure it's clean. At what age do you start this? If they don't know what a fire is, that's your sign. Also, I should add, just this morning, probably an hour ago, my 12-year-old was asking if he could come in. So sometimes the boundaries take a long time to learn. Build boundaries with non-supporters. When you're not feeling the love from the general public or your unsupportive relative, when you regularly hear comments like, "Why aren't you in school? Is it legal? Do you have a teaching certification?" All that stuff. Remind yourself, you do not have to be a representative of the homeschool world. People are often surprised. They're probably just surprised by an unconventional choice. They don't know how it works, or they're wondering if there's a holiday. They might benefit from hearing your reasons for your homeschool preference. If you've been asked something regularly, be prepared to answer, but determine your answers in advance. No sass and defensiveness required. And if you feel like it is, you don't have to answer. Build boundaries into your homeschool day. If you're not an unschooler and you're occupied in a study routine that's fairly predictable, don't answer the phone. Determine your study hours. Let the regular people in your life know that you're busy, and they will learn to honor those boundaries as you insist those boundaries are necessary as punching a clock in your workspace. Build cleanliness boundaries. Maybe you want to teach your kids, keep your room clean, flush the toilet after you use it, wash your hands after you use the toilet, wipe the bathroom wall after you pee. Boy mamas unite. You can teach them whatever is essential to you. Yes, the wall will still gradually yellow because they are learning. There are not many janitors, although, yeah, I wish. But you got to start somewhere. Domestic engineering. Teach kids or kindness boundaries. Oh, the most challenging one. Teach them not to interrupt their siblings. Be patient. However, assume their immaturity in relating continues throughout childhood, really throughout our entire life. Teach them to listen to each other and to you. Teach them to repeat back what they've heard their siblings say so they actually learn how to listen. This will be their biggest lesson in their entire homeschool existence, recognizing their own emotional atmosphere and giving a rip about their siblings as well. Expect great things from their sibling relationships and assume this is the ultimate training ground for the future relationships. Caveat: small kids are natural boundary breakers. If you have small kids, The notion of boundaries is nebulous at best. What boundaries do you expect from a child who is 6 or 10 or 15? You just remember, kids don't get magic boundary pills. You gotta teach them. And don't be reactive. Something I'm still learning. When you react, you're not really establishing your boundary. You're showing them that it makes you mad. Establish the boundary, expect it, and they will gradually learn to honor it. Assume boundaries will take time to learn. Assume you really will be repeating yourself 1 million times. Give yourself a break. Expect boundaries won't be established quickly or without mistakes. Boundaries are taught over time. So did you notice that I have a Mother's Day gift for you? I am very excited, both for myself. I get to chat with these very lovely homeschool mama mentors the week before Mother's Day, and you are invited to our Instagram live series, the Homeschool Mama Mentor live series. You'll find out more information about that in the post that is in the Instagram Homeschool Mama Self-Care down below. Also, if you are wondering, where can I get more reminders about boundaries? That would be in here. You can find it on Amazon, Homeschool-Mama-Self-Care-Nurturing the Nurturer. I hope you and your kids have a charmed week. And if it's a challenging week, we can reframe our challenges, all of them, and turn them into charms, even though sometimes it takes a while and a lot of effort. So I wish you and your kids a charmed weekend.